Hello everyone and welcome back to Pavlov tutorials. Now, in the last video we did a keycard door movement system, and I gotta be honest, it was kind of shit, and there was a lot wrong with it that I really should have addressed. So that's what this video is for. We're going to be doing not only a better keycard and door system, but we're going to be using one that can use multiple different cards and target different doors, and it's not really a one-to-one system. You can use this for anything you want and it'll work. Interestingly enough, you don't even have to use this for doors. You could really use this as a object interact, move another object kind of script. So you can do this for really anything. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Last time we made this keycard and we made the keycard be the dictator for everything, for the door and for the tag. But this time we actually have a reader that's going to be dictating everything. And that is indicated by this white volume box. So let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. So the first thing that we did was we created a empty trigger box parent class. So to do that, just right click in your folder, blueprint class, go ahead and type trigger, and then at the bottom here, you'll see trigger box, make that the parent. Now, I already have this all planned out because I wanted to make sure this worked before I shared it this time. And I think that's what I'll end up doing going forward, just to make sure that everything works properly. Because I've noticed that there's been a lot of comments about issues that have been coming up or people who have had errors. And I figured this is probably a better way to address the problem. So let's go ahead and talk about what we have here. So in the viewport, we have these components. We have our parent trigger box volume. We have our collision component, which is just the green lines. We have our sprite, which is just the little box. And then what I did was I added a cube. And to do that, just hit the add button. You can add cube. And in a prior video, I mentioned that the perfect scale for this is to do 0.8. And then I added a material called volume transparent. If you don't want to add a volume, you don't have to. And I just do this so that way you can see it. You can also just leave it completely invisible and just have something like a cube or static mesh you want be a placeholder and just have your trigger box be around it. However you want to do it, you go ahead. Let's go into the event graph now. What we have here is everything that we need to make this door work with just one card or one VR item. So let's talk about the variables that we have here. We have a name, which is called cards to read. This is the tags that we're going to be looking for on our keycard item. We are going to reuse the keycard from our last video. We have an actor, which is the door object itself, the static mesh. We have a vector door initial position. We have another vector door new position, and we have a rotator door initial rotation. And then we have a Boolean, which is the card read delay. And we'll talk more about each of these here in a second. The first thing we need to do is we need to initialize our initial positions and our initial rotations. So we use the event to begin play. Begin play runs at the start of the game. So what we do is we pull a little bit of delay. I just did 0.2 seconds. And at the start of the game, which we could show here, you'll notice it's the first thing that gets executed. So when this gets executed, it immediately will do a set door initial position and a set door initial rotation. So what we do is we grab our door to move actor, we do a get, and then we drag out and we get actor location, and then we get actor rotation, and we want to make sure that the target is set to actor. And just to show this, you can just pull and drag and do a get actor location, there's that, and then get actor rotation, and there it is right there. Something I quickly overlooked is to make sure that your door to move variable is replicated. This is important because as this object moves, we want to make sure that it's replicated across all players and the server as well. Additionally, let's make sure that this variable is instance editable, so that way when we pull multiple card readers, we can manipulate multiple doors. Similarly, we want to make the cards to read instance editable, so that way we can have multiple readers that can read different types of cards. The vector for new door position, I also have instance editable. This is not nearly as important, as you can make this however you want it to be, but the reason I made it instance editable is that all the doors in my maps simply teleport or move to negative like 100 or negative 1000 underneath the map, just for the simplicity of moving it off of the map and then moving it back when we need to. But you can do whatever you want with this. So once we set these at the start, now our initial position, our initial rotation are set at the start of the game. And that's going to be important because once we move the door, we want to make sure that the door can go back to its initial position and its initial rotation when we're done using the door. The next thing we want to do is we want to pull an OnComponentBeginOverlap. And specifically, we want to do this in relation to the collision component. If you don't remember how to do that, you can simply go up to your components, right click, add event, and then find the OnComponentBeginOverlap. Now, this is where it could differ. As I mentioned earlier, we are reusing the key card from last time. Now, this is just a VR item. So technically, if you have a VR item that you're using as a placeholder, you could just do a cast to VR item. Since I'm using specifically a key card because I have special attributes with it, I am going to be casting to my key card. If you're using a VR item or you have a different name for it, make sure you cast to that object. My key card has an actor component, so because of that, when I cast to it, as a key card, I can pull the actor tags, and this is going to be important for our checks. So from OnComponentBeginOverlap, on the other actor, I'm going to cast to keycard. If this is successful, then it means that it casts to my keycard, and the keycard is the thing that's interacting with the collision component. Now, I don't just want any keycard to work, I want to make sure that it's a specific keycard. So I will pull this and do an actor has tag. Now, this is where our other variable comes in. So I'll pull a cards to read, I will do get, and I'll connect the link to this green box. And because this is instance editable, when we pull out one of these trigger boxes, we can give it any tag to read, and then when we have our VR item, our key cards, we can give it a tag. We go ahead and then we push this to a branch statement. Now, it's important to discuss why I have this AND statement and why there's this card read delay. So I have this card read delay because I don't want players to be able to swing their arms in and out of a volume super fast and essentially keep running this OnComponentBeginOverlap over and over and over, because you could bug the game. Every time that they run a successful cast to keycard, whether it is the right keycard or not, we actually want to disable this boolean. And what this does is that it puts this statement as false. So once somebody puts the card in, they can't immediately start activating this component and running through all of these commands over and over and over. The most that they could do is just successfully cast a keycard, and it'll just keep running through this part of the script. That way it protects our server commands from being run too many times and possibly crashing the server. Not only do we disable the card read, but we delay it by 2 seconds, so that way the only way you can use the key card is every 2 seconds. You can't just flail it in and out every microsecond essentially. If it fails, we disable the card reader essentially for 2 seconds, and then it gets re-enabled, and then you can swipe again. Now, if it passes, we do the same thing. We disable the card reader for 2 seconds, and then we re-enable it. But now, because of that, the first thing we do is, if it passes, we actually run this new custom event called door movement. Because we need the door to move among all the players in the server, we actually created a custom event called door movement. If you don't remember how to create a custom event, just right click, type custom, and you'll have add event. Our door movement has an important attribute to it. we have multicast as a replicate. And this is important because we need to make sure that this command runs on the server as well as all players, so that way the door moves for everyone, not just one person. Once this command executes, we'll grab another instance of the door and we'll pull and type set actor location and rotation. And that's going to give us this box here. Another important thing about our custom event is that we set one input, position, and that's our vector. So we give it a vector and we'll have this little node here, and we can simply plug this directly in. So every time we call this function, we'll be required to put in a vector. If we don't, it'll just default to 0, 0, 0. And this is where our other variable, new door position, comes in handy. So now we can pull and get our new door position and we can plug it in. That way, when the card reader is successfully read, we move the door somewhere else, whether it's under the map, whether we move it just to the side, whatever. You can do however you want. This is just an example. Now, we have this rotation here and we grab the initial rotation from our earlier initial thing because we want to make sure that after we move the door, just in case the door somehow gets rotated, unlikely, but it's possible, we want to make sure that it maintains the same rotation that it had at the start of the game. Again, very unlikely that the door will somehow rotate out of position, but just in case, we'll force it so it never will. So now the door is open and the card reader has been disabled for 2 seconds. So now we enable the card reader and we give the player another 3 seconds to move through the door before we call door movement again. Now, this time, we input the vector as our door initial position. So what does that do? That means that it calls the same function for moving the door, but this time, it moves the door back to its original position at the start of the game. This is important because it forces the players to move through the door within 5 seconds of putting the card onto the scanner. This forces us to make sure that the doors will always close instead of remaining open. Originally, I had this with an OnComponentEndOverlap. There were just too many edge cases to try and work with and the script became a little too complicated. This just simplifies it to make sure that you have 5 seconds to get through the door, and if you don't, well then you could just try again by scanning and then going in. If you need to adjust this time, for the duration of delay, you can always create another variable and call it delay time if you really want to, and make this instance editable as well. So you can have a custom amount of time for the door to stay open if you want. Just remember that there's 2 seconds before that the card reader has to be disabled just for the sake of making sure that players can't spam the card reader and potentially crash the server. Now, as a means to make sure that this actually worked, I wanted to go ahead and test it using the engine. So that's exactly what I did. So I have this card reader, or this key card, which I mentioned earlier is what I cast to. So I have my reader here, and because we have a few attributes that we set to instance editable, there's going to be this default tab when we click on general or all, and we're going to have a few fields that we need to fill in. So the cards that we want to read is going to be the tags that we want to read from certain actor components or VR items. I'm using the tag skull because my key card has a skull on it. You can use whatever you want. Okay. Door to move is going to put up a list of all actors that have a skeletal. Well, actually, it's just going to bring up all actors in general. In my case, I'm referencing a key card door or this cube here, which is just a static mesh actor. But since it still has the parent class of actor, it actually is something I can select from this list. New door position. Since we made this instance editable as well, I can actually select where I want this door to go. And like I said, I just want it to go underneath the map when we move it. Delay time, this was a variable that we just introduced. Now granted, I don't have this one connected, so it's not going to matter if I do anything with it. But if you do have it connected, just remember you need to add 2 seconds to it if you follow the script exactly how I made it. So let's give this a try. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my keycard and I'm simply going to move it into the volume. So now that I did that, you'll notice the door has vanished. And after 5 seconds, it's now come back. Let me pull the key out. Oh, okay. Well, the key just popped back in, so it's there. It's in the volume, and now the door is back. Pull it out. Its door is there. 5 seconds. Door is back. Put it in the volume. Door leaves. 5 seconds. And the door is back. I forgot to explain how we add tags because that's going to be really important. On your VR item, you're going to want to go into the actor tab, and then you're going to want to scroll down and you're going to want to open the advanced submenu here. At the bottom, you're going to have tags. You'll notice that I have skull here. So what if I had something else? Let's say I had red. Oh. And it looks like, even though I put the reader in, because I have the wrong tag, I fail that branch statement. So this card won't work with this reader, but it'll work with another card. Let's say we were to duplicate this. So we have a skull tag and we have a red tag. So let's try this. Just confirm. Okay, so that's red. Doesn't work. Keycard 2. Boom. That one works because it has the correct tag. So now we have two readers. This reader only reads cards that have the tag skull, and this reader only reads cards with the tag red. So let's try it out. Now both of them reference the same door and we'll do the same thing. All right, the door moved. And then it's back. Now let's try it with this one. Boom. All right, great. But if we were to swap these cards around, they wouldn't work on each other's readers. Something to keep in mind is that if you have the mobility set to static, this will not work. You need to make sure that your actors are set to movable. Otherwise, when you activate these, the script for moving the object isn't going to do anything. That's really important to have changed over, is the movability. Now, it will remove any shadows, especially since we're going to be making it dynamic. And that's all there is to it. So that is how you can make a card reader for multiple different key cards and how to properly move your doors. So thank you all for watching. I hope you all have learned something really great from this. I will be setting the other video as obsolete, and I will be putting a link to this video instead because this is a better approach in my opinion, and it's not as sloppily done. This has been MaJerati, and I will see you all in the next one.